you've tuned in to the Really Anxious podcast, where we're actually pretty terrified to be here right now. We're feeling very anxious. I'm sweaty, personally.
Armpit stains.
And we're gonna talk about social anxiety here today. I'm your host, Scared of People, Pete, and I'm here with a very special guest.
Am I special?
You are a special guest.
Appreciate that.
On the Socially Anxious podcast, you are. Do you have a alliterative socially anxiety related name?
Oh, geez, putting me on the spot. No, just Mikey Mederios, right? I mean, doesn't get more anxious than that.
You could be like Nervous Ned, Sweaty Steve, anything like that would have been fine. But you're not. You're not any of those things. And you're not even that nervous, because this is just a chill environment for a chill podcast that we call the Photography Friends Podcast. And I'm your host, your photographer, Jared Poirier, and I'm here with another excellent photographer that I can truly vouch for, because I've shot photos with this guy. I've shot professional video with this guy. Our wonderful guest, who is, of course,
Mikey Mederios. I didn't forget my name.
Mederios.
I didn't forget it. No, sorry.
Mikey Mederios, not Steve Mederios, by the way, who is another great photographer.
Shout out Steve Mederios. Yeah, we're not related, by the way.
Shout out, as far as we know.
As far as we know, yeah, we'll get into that. We'll get into that later.
Later, I guess, if you want to. I don't know. Anyways, shout out to Steve. He's been on the show, so I'm collecting all the Mederios photographers that are out there. So if your name's Mederios and you're a photographer, then you're welcome on the show. And that intro was fake, as it always is. If you guys have listened to the podcast, you know that we do fake intros before we do real intros. But we are going to talk about social anxiety today and how that relates to photography. Something that both of us have faced, both of us have struggled. Probably everybody in the world has struggled with at some point or another. Before we get into that, though, we have to thank our sponsor, which is, of course, CloudSpot. I don't know why I expect.
I use CloudSpot.
Do you?
Yeah.
Wow, there you go.
Just getting into it.
Guy uses CloudSpot. He can vouch for it too. I use CloudSpot. He uses CloudSpot. Probably Steve Mederios might use CloudSpot sometimes.
If you're a Mederios and you're a photographer, I'm sure you use CloudSpot.
You've got to be using that CloudSpot. And it's the easiest way for photographers to deliver and sell photos online, guys. You know, you got all those perks, all those features, beautiful galleries, easy downloads. It's just so much better than sending that, what do people use? WeTransfer or whatever. I don't know. I can't do that to my clients, you guys. I gotta send them those nice CloudSpot galleries. It saves you time and impresses your clients. And the best part is, you, as a listener to this podcast, even if you only listen to it once, even if you only listen to 5 seconds of this podcast, all you got to do is click the link down below and you'll get 50% off. How does that sound, Mikey?
Sounds pretty sweet to me. Yeah.
Sounds pretty freaking awesome. So, all right, let's talk about the actual topic of this podcast. Why we're here today in the studio. We got these lights on us. We're feeling good. We're going to talk about social anxiety, kind of how it relates to photography. For me personally, I find that photography is something that really requires you to get out of your shell. In a lot of ways, it requires you to be pretty extroverted, I think. Stop me if you think that some of these things are untrue. I would say it involves, you kind of need a lot of confidence in order to do it, and there is a risk-taking element as well. And I think that all of those things might play into how someone might feel a sense of anxiety going into a photo shoot or even negotiating a photo shoot, right?
Yeah, no, I think it's just it's really tough, especially for new photographers starting out. I mean, I've kind of dabbled in photography now since maybe a little over a year now, and even now it can be frightening when you're walking down the street, even taking shots. You always have that perception that everyone is all eyes on you kind of thing. And kind of looking at you and wondering what you're doing with the camera. Are you taking their photos? Are you maybe taking a photo of something that, I don't know, someone else should probably pay attention to? Those types of things, that, and also even kind of ties into imposter syndrome, which shout out to West NJ. I know he touched on that on your podcast, but it even kind of plays into your mind, like, am I doing enough as a photographer? Do I know what I'm doing? Maybe that person who's watching me is actually a photographer, and maybe they notice that, I don't know, my settings are off as they're walking by me looking at my camera. Maybe I don't have the right gear. All those different things kind of play into your head on the street side of photography. But and then there's also the event side of things too, right? So I've been, shooting some more gigs recently, doing some events, doing some weddings, birthdays, graduations. I found that even like going into my wedding shoots, which was just a few months ago, I had the most amount of anxiety. Like, you have no idea, Jared. Going into there, I don't know anybody. I don't even know the people getting married. It's very frightening. I mean, you walk in and then everyone just kind of starts to look at you, and you kind of think like, am I good enough to kind of be here, or am I the right person for this job, kind of thing. True. That's some of those things kind of just play and creep in your head, but
it sounds like you're getting into your head a little bit and kind of like, I don't know, trying to figure out what like other people are thinking, and that can definitely be a thing, man. And then once those gears get turning in your head, then they start coming up with other problems, other things that are scaring you, and then your brain is just like not in the moment.
Can't even focus on the shoot at that point.
Yeah,
right?
You're thinking about, did
tough.
I leave the stove on? Shit, dude, did I leave my stove on? Did I lock my door? You're thinking about that shit when you need to really be focused on the moment. And I've obviously felt that before. It's probably the most common thing, especially when you're just starting out and maybe you don't feel confident, like you even know 100% what you're doing, right? But I still feel that way on a lot of shoots. I kind of like feeling that way, that I don't know really, 100% what I'm doing. Yeah, that's how you know you're like trying hard and doing something interesting if you're not.
Do you at least prepare for the shoot, and then does that kind of make your anxiety go away?
For sure. Yeah, so maybe that's like the first point that we can touch on, right? Is like preparing for the shoot, setting yourself up for success in that way, that when you actually get there, you're going to be able to chill out. You're going to be able to live in the moment. There's a lot of things that you can do even before you get there, like even before you take one single photo, even before you turn your camera on, right? Like negotiating with the client, setting that expectation. You can kind of go through the shoot. If it's like an event, especially important, maybe even a wedding, whatever, birthday party, you can say, what's gonna be the structure of the event, what's happening when. These types of things can really help you out a lot,
Yeah, I know that's a good point. I think even just my last gig I did, which was a 2-year-old birthday, that's where I think I kind of failed in a sense of not preparing and maybe even asking for, let's say, an agenda. Because when I get to the shoot, like I mean, obviously in my head, I have a checklist of what I want to get and different types of shots I want to get. And like, even I should have asked beforehand, so that's on me. But even at the shoot, I even asked like, hey, like, I feel like the best shot for any birthday is, a shot of the kid blowing the candles, right? Like that's the money shot.
Yeah.
So I even asked like, hey, what time exactly is this going to be happening? Just so I can at least prepare myself, prepare my settings, make sure I'm in the right spot for the shot. So last Sunday, I asked them and they said, about 5:30. So I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm getting ready they said 6:00. So I'm getting ready for 6:00, and then 5:30 hits. All of a sudden, nobody says a word to me. I see them starting to light the candles. And I'm like, oh shoot, like, what do I, like, what I mean? And it's a really tight spot with a lot of people. So I was like panicking. So I just had to like rush and run through everybody, which typically
you're pushing kids over.
Move.
elbowing them.
Luckily, the side I was running on was all the adults,
Yeah.
but nobody was hurt, thankfully. But then and then it was just like that fear and anxiety of like, oh my god, I'm going to miss a shot. I'm going to miss a shot. Luckily, I got the shot, but the unfortunate part is it wasn't as crisp as I would have liked it to come out. It wasn't the angle I would have liked it to be. It wasn't the proper settings I wanted it to be. So now, I feel bad giving that to the client.
Yeah, true. And that is the thing, right? At the end of the day, like that's what we're talking about is, as photographers, we always want to deliver the best possible thing. And we even get in our own heads, I think, quite a bit like about, man, I could have done that a little bit better. Like if the lighting was a little bit this way, like it doesn't come from a place like, speaking for me personally, maybe some people it does come from this place, but for me it doesn't come from a place of like, oh, I need to be the boss of this thing or I need to like dominate this thing.
Totally.
Like it's more about, and like you've worked on shoots with me before, right? Hopefully I wasn't a dick. It's like this guy,
talk about that afterwards.
This guy acts all nice on the podcast. Try actually working a gig with him. But like it's not about me like dominating the thing and being like the big swinging dick in the room. It's more about the quality of what I'm putting out and these things of I need a base level of like recognition of what I'm doing and just like the respect of someone saying, yo, we need to get these shots. Yeah, like let's make sure that the photographer can do his job. And there's quite a bit that you can do, on the client side, just like talking to the client, preparing them for that, saying, listen, I like to plan a few things out. Maybe we can get a little bit of a timetable in advance, realizing that none of that shit on the day is going to be real.
I mean,
but,
no, you're right. But at the very least, I would have at least liked to be like, hey, we're about to blow the candles, just a heads up kind of thing. And but again, maybe that's on me too. Maybe I should have at least said, hey, if your timing's changing, let me know.
Yeah.
But it's not even just that. Like again, I'm gonna pick on that same event just because it was the most recent and it's the most fresh in my head. But again, going into that space, I don't know anybody in that space. There's 30 plus people. Some of them are kids. A lot of them are adults as well. I just it just feel weird walking into that room, right? But thankfully, and even there's some times where maybe you can bring in a guest, right? And for me, that's how I find ways to kind of cope with that anxiety. So for instance, my girlfriend, shout out my girlfriend, Cola, she was with me at that shoot and luckily she knew a couple of people, but she was kind of giving me tips and pointers of like, maybe you should kind of do this or maybe you should do that. But then also like being the photographer, and you're like an hour into your 2-hour gig and you don't have the proper shots that you really wanted to get. At that point, like the client has now paid, and they're expecting certain shots. At that point, like I kind of have to get out of my bubble, my social bubble, and start talking to people a little bit more. So for instance, I'll go up to a group and be like, hey, like, can I just grab your shot kind of thing? It would be really great for the client or for, in this case, the mother of the person having the baby or having the birthday, sorry. So that's kind of what's been helping with me for birthdays, for even weddings. Same type of thing. The wedding I'd shot back in September, again, walking into it, not knowing anybody. As soon as I walk into the room, everyone's just staring at me. Like, who's this guy? Is he on the bride's side? Is he on the groom's side?
You got to have that the camera sling if you have that, right? With the leather thing.
You just got to look the part, really. Look the part and just be social. Just start talking to people, right? And then they'll start to open up a bit more. Maybe they'll have questions about your experience. Maybe it'll even open up doors for shoots down the road, right? True.
Yeah.
Like I know you're big on that too. Even when we shot last time, just talking to other people. That's kind of how you get your clients.
Yeah, definitely. It can be an opportunity if when you're in a space and you're shooting and you're doing an event or whatever, you can score more gigs off of that. That just like what you were talking about, though, did remind me like of a specific gig that I was doing recently. I did a series of concerts.
Yep.
Lemon Entertainment was like the promoter that put it on, and it was a great experience. And just kind of one of the things though that did happen is that throughout the whole series, I definitely prioritized like shooting the bands, right, and making sure like I gotta get good band shots. I was getting some video and stuff like that too. So my priority was definitely in that thing of like get the bands. Come to realize that later on in the series, I hardly have any shots of the crowd or anything like that, and then like I'm saying, those gears started turning, right? And it's like, oh, well, what if you go to people and you're like, hey, can I take a shot of you guys? And they'll be like weird about it, which does happen sometimes.
Yeah, that's fair.
But in this particular situation, it's a freaking party, man. People are there to see bands. They're there to hang out. They're drinking. Let's be honest.
No, you're right. Like, you're right.
And I can tell you, without one single exception, every person who I asked was
totally cool
fucking pumped
to
have their photo taken. And I was like, why did I get in my own head about this? Why did I do that?
No, you're so right. And for me too, like I'm in my own head as well in that moment. And, sometimes I'm worried to talk to somebody because you're right. They'll just be like, no, I don't want my photo. But even if they do say that, so what?
Then
right?
Who cares?
Move on to the next person. It's not a big deal. At least you ask permission, right? Like at the very least. So, screw it.
Yeah, pretty much, man.
Talk to people,
Yeah. In terms of the actual process, though, going back to that, like, do you have like a checklist or anything like that you use, like when you're packing up gear, when you first get to the gig, like kind of a process or like an order of how you do shit, even?
Yeah, I mean, I have a mental checklist of the gear I want to bring in, but even for the
do you ever forget shit?
So far, no, I think actually the opposite. I bring too much and I just don't use it all, right? Like I bring in 4 different lenses, 2 different bodies. Yeah.
2 bodies.
But I end up just using one body, one lens, and pretty much it. Like, nothing crazy.
So you don't actually like write it down, but you do have like a checklist in your head of, what do I need to bring, how I'm going to pack it.
That's right. And then I also have like a list of different shot ideas I want to get. Like obviously for the wedding, it's like the first kiss, cutting of the cake, walking down the aisle, that totally. First dance, that type of thing, right?
Yep.
But for depending on what you're shooting, especially weddings, there's just so many different things you do need to knock off, which I would definitely suggest writing that down because in the moment, you're going to start to sweat. Just trying to figure out what you want to do in the moment. It's just nice to kind of look back at your phone, be like, oh, right, I'm done. Did that. Okay, now I need to do the first kiss.
Yeah, for sure.
That kind of thing.
Yeah, I find too, like doing that much planning can really help you because there's always going to be something unexpected that happens. Like, let's just be honest. You can try to control every little thing, even if it is like a studio shoot, bro, and you're literally like, this person's coming at this time, we've got these lights, this backdrop. There's still going to be some unexpected thing that's going to happen, right? Like, and I plan every little single part of this podcast, when we're going to get there, what lights we're going to use, blah, blah, blah. And still, like I was telling you earlier, if you don't have your phone on airplane mode, then it starts like picking up like weird signals and like put static on the podcast. It's never what you expect, though. It's always like something out of left field. But at least if you have those like baseline things, like, that all of that is on lock, right? Like, I know that I have an extra battery. I've got memory cards up the wazoo. Yeah. So a lot of different shit could go wrong, but yeah.
And I feel like the more anxious you are, the more prepared you are going to be in that sense, because that's just one thing you don't want to go wrong is just forgetting those shots, forgetting that piece of gear. So yeah, I think that's just part of it.
Yeah.
But like one way I deal with social anxiety when it comes to photography, someone had told me, whatever makes you anxious, doesn't matter what it is, could be photography, could be life, doesn't even matter. Whatever makes you anxious, just literally face it head on.
True.
Because then you're going to start to trick your brain. It's not actually anxious. Like, it's not as bad as you thought it was going to be,
unless it's bear fighting, then maybe don't.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously there's certain exceptions to the rule, right? But like, for instance, like this is not photography specific, but more just kind of using as an analogy. Like if someone is terrified of driving on the highway at high speeds.
True, yeah.
That's not necessarily something to be anxious about. Like, obviously, you don't want to be driving high speeds when it's like a blizzard or something, but in order for you to trick your mind into feeling like that's okay and you're able to do it, is just to repeat the process and just do it again and again.
Very good point, man.
And once you do that,
yeah.
you're, like I said, you're going to trick your brain. You're going to feel like it's cool. Like, oh, nothing to worry about. Like, what was I worrying about?
Right. And even if the thing does happen, like you were saying, even if you do say, hey, can I like take a photo of you? And someone's like, no.
Okay,
then
cool.
Then at least you face that thing and you've realized like, oh, I really blew that up in my head a lot.
You know
right?
what? That actually reminds me back in my university days.
Yeah, man. I've got
was,
my University of Toronto hoodie over here. It says
Yeah.
2014 on the fucking thing, man.
So I went to Ryerson University, graduated in 2015.
Yeah.
But when I was in Ryerson University,
It's called Toronto Metropolitan University. Terrible name.
Don't get me started with that. Yeah, let's now I got to change my diploma. Do I get a new diploma?
I don't know, bro.
Anyways.
And you get to pick whatever you want on. You're a paleontologist, bro.
PhD in paleontology.
There you go.
I love it. I always wanted to be a paleontologist.
Yeah, that's awesome.
No, so back to my point. Back in university, I was kind of getting to the point where I was trying to figure out myself what I want to do with my life.
Mm-hmm.
Do I want to kind of dabble in like the entrepreneurship business side?
Yeah.
But I was always afraid of rejection, or fear of hearing no from people, right? So one of the things I did, and I can't remember how I came to this, but I had this challenge I wanted to do. And that challenge was to get rejected. So literally I would have a thing where every day I would go up to random people. I would record myself and I would purposefully look for someone to reject me and say no.
Wow.
So, and again, the whole idea of that is you do it for 30 days and you kind of just get numb to no's. And then eventually you'll be surprised at the yeses you get.
Yeah, true.
So for instance, I remember there was...
I think my buddy told me a very similar thing, except for picking up girls.
No, it had nothing to do with picking up girls. But I mean, I guess that could work, right?
Yeah.
But no, so what I had did was like one of the things, for example, was going up to a random store at the mall and, asking them if I could be the mannequin.
Yeah.
In the front.
Yeah.
And they just kind of look at me really weird. Usually they get pretty good reactions.
Yeah.
Like, oh, like, ha 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 ha, like, that's silly. But then there was this one time I got a really crazy, it's not a crazy reaction, but it was not what I was expecting. I was in a food court at the Eaton Center.
Yeah.
And I had asked somebody sitting down at the food court who was having her lunch, I asked her if, hey, could I have a bite?
Oh man, that's funny.
And she looked at me like she was like she was gonna get murdered or something. Like she was not happy with it. She was not cool with it. So I was just like, ooh, all right, I'm just gonna walk away awkwardly. But no, again, like I was able to kind of like, oh, I mean, yeah, it sucked, but it wasn't that bad, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Even like in another, I'll probably mention one more. I went up to
Hey man, it's a long. It can be a long podcast. I don't care. We got lots of time.
We're here all day.
It's a podcast.
One time I went up to McDonald's and I had a burger, and then I was done that burger, and then I went back to the person behind the cash register and I asked them, hey, can I get a burger refill? Yeah, it would have been nice if I got the burger, but obviously they said no, and I was just like, okay, I'll move on. I was expecting the no, and that's the whole purpose of that exercise. So again, back to photography, how it relates to photography. If one of the things that I want to really do, and I've had this chat with West Gen J, I want to do more street portraits of people, just going up to people and asking them, hey, can I take your street shot?
That's cool, man.
And again, if they say no, that's fine. You just move on. And again, I just want to feel numb to that no. So I encourage the no, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I know West NJ, same thing, has been doing the same thing. And like I was, a photo shoot with him, just walking the streets of Kensington Market, and he went up to somebody, asked them for their street portrait, and they're like, yeah, for sure, cool, like no problem. So I'm definitely looking at trying to dabbling into that and kind of releasing that social anxiety I have.
Yeah.
streetwise.
Yeah, street is a tough one, man, because at least with events, like people are kind of opted
Expecting
in.
it, right?
Yeah.
No, you're right. You're right.
And there
Street's
might
a little
even be
different.
some signs around that say like this is a photographed event or whatever, so you might be photographed or
Exactly.
whatever. I'm gonna get a shirt that says that. Like if you're in the vicinity, that'd be a pretty funny shirt, right? Yeah, maybe that'll be merch for the podcast.
I would buy it. Yeah.
Hey, there you go. And it would say like, if you're within 2 meters of this person, you may be photographed or videoed. I don't know. Or maybe I'll end up in jail if I do it. I'm not sure. But that's
just don't go in near any playgrounds.
That'll help me with my anxiety around
Yeah.
going to jail.
For sure.
So,
There you go.
But one thing that's helped me personally, man, like I just want to say from my like personal example, that's cool that you had some like personal examples, and it is pretty interesting that you like challenge yourself in that specific way. One thing that has been big for me is like doing this type of stuff, doing podcasts, doing YouTube. I started out in terms of like making content. Started out on YouTube, just doing it for fun, doing it because I liked it, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And and doing like podcasts, doing Instagram reels, even like guesting on other people's podcasts and that. I find that has really helped me like to get out of my shell and like have to like even when you're not getting anything from another person, because that makes it easier, right? Like
It always does, yeah.
Yeah, being able to bounce off of somebody. Being able to hone that skill of like literally talking to a wall and still being like, well, you're talking to the camera, I guess, but there's a wall anyways. Being able to be like, yeah, hey, what's up? How's it going? And kind of be like boisterous even when there's no reason.
See, you're really good at that. Like when we did our shoot a couple months back, I was amazed.
The St. Andrews.
I was kind of envious in a way,
Yeah.
but I was also kind of studying you how you kind of held yourself. I mean, like that's something I want to kind of do too, is just kind of be like, I feel like I'm an outgoing person, especially if you get to know me, but in those settings where you don't know those people, I'm not sure how you do it, but you do it pretty well. You're pretty out there, outgoing, and that's always easy for your clients or the people that you're shooting, is just kind of feel that energy, and you're
approachable, and
Exactly.
they're not afraid to talk to you and shit.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's been one way that I've accomplished that for sure. And like I'm not perfect at it, man. I still get in my own head about shit sometimes. But yeah, one way I've accomplished that is definitely doing content, and then I have to like listen back to it and be like, okay, like you should present yourself a little bit better this way, or you could say this thing a little bit less, or you kind of refine the way that you're talking, I think, like through doing content and things like that. And it's good for your business, and you meet people, man. Like I wouldn't know you, I wouldn't know Jay, I wouldn't know like so many people who have been on the show, like that I just met randomly because I have a podcast, right? And that's
pretty sweet gig.
Yeah, I would do it for that reason alone. But yeah, it is really good for developing your skills of like being out of your shell, being kind of more extroverted and stuff like that. Bartending, I would say bartending helped me with that as well. Like if I had to come up with another thing that helped, bartending and that. And I don't know, just like you're saying, kind of throw yourself in the deep end. Like that's been really like in a weird way my approach to like life in general in the whole thing. Like the reason, like the way that I even came to Toronto in the first place, like I literally just moved here when I was 17. I was just like, I'm fucking moving to Toronto. I lived in a small town with like 40,000 people out in Timmins. Yeah. Shout out Timmins. Shout out every one of you Timmins people drinking Coors Light and fucking what's it, Alexander Keith's back in Timmins. Like I didn't really have a plan of I'm gonna get to Toronto and I'm gonna do this and I have these connections. No, it was like I'll fucking go there, I'll figure it out, man. And that's how I approach a lot of stuff. Like again, the thing that you start like working on in your head, and that is usually like a lot worse. Yeah.
Exactly. The more you let it sit in your head, the worse it's just going to get. And
totally,
at the end of the day, or at the end of the shoot, you're not going to get the shots that you need, right?
Yeah.
Like you just need to kind of get out of that bubble, get out of that headspace, and you'll be fine. And one of the things I like to do is, as soon as you get to the shoot, just take some warm-up shots. It could be of a coffee cup.
Totally, yeah.
It doesn't matter what it is. Just kind of get a feel for your camera, for your settings, for the environment around you, the people around you, and then you're golden. You're set.
Yeah, I do find, especially if I'm like haven't shot for a long time too, then I start getting those weird, like that weird anxiety thing again, where it's like, bro, do you even know how to use your camera?
Yeah, do you know how to shoot? Like, come on.
If I'm shooting every day, then it just becomes pretty automatic, right?
Yeah,
Where I'm like,
right.
shit, I know how to do this. I find too, another thing that can really help you a lot though is just like if you are doing the same type of stuff, right? If you are working in the same types of areas, like let's say you do weddings, once
Sure.
you've done a few, you start to get used to, A, B, C, and D. What are the things that happen at a wedding? You know what I
Right,
mean? Yeah.
right. But, I mean, unfortunately for me, and hopefully down the road I'll get more of these types of shoots. Like
Yeah.
I've only done one wedding shoot.
Yeah.
So
I haven't done any yet. So,
Yeah, well.
If you need a second shooter on a wedding, let me know.
Hey, I gotcha. Yeah, I'll let you know. But yeah, I
Are you
mean,
going to get married anytime soon? No, just kidding.
putting me on the spot. But yeah, I mean, like the next wedding, hopefully I do another wedding. The next
Yeah.
wedding I do, yes, I'll kind of have an idea because I had some experience, but it's also been a few months, right? So it's not quite fresh in my head.
Yeah.
Which is why, going back to just preparing yourself, right? Before the shoot, like even like a day before the shoot, I get anxious because I'm a perfectionist and I want to make sure everything is done right and I get the right shots. So I'm like thinking, okay, again, like what shots do I want to get? How do I want to pose certain people and this and that and different angles? I don't want to be boring with the same shots over and over and over again, right? Like you kind of have to mix it up a bit.
Yeah.
And even when I tell the client, like, I'm going to be providing you at this rate, excuse me, at this rate, 40 photos, I want to make sure they're 40 solid photos and not all the same different types of shots, right? Like
Yeah,
I want to make
true,
sure
true,
it's a mix. It tells a story.
To get that variety. Because
Yeah.
you only have one shot, man. Like if it's an event that's happening one time, like
You only get one second birthday, right? 2-year-old
Yeah,
birthday. You
yeah.
only get one, hopefully, wedding, right? So who knows?
you only get one funeral unless you're a zombie or a
Uh,
vampire.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you got me there.
Yeah. But yeah, like I do find that, having a target demographic, having something that you do a lot, you get more comfortable, especially if it's like an industry and you start to know the industry more. You start to know what people expect and yeah, just like the level of like kind of casualness to it too. Like one of the biggest things that I do, I do like the events and concerts and all that stuff. But I've been doing quite a bit of work in like the food and beverage and like with, like chefs and I don't know, the closest thing that we have to like celebrity chefs in Canada, I guess. Yeah. Shout out Joe Friday. Drop a shout out for him.
So for like those types of
Yeah.
people that you shoot for, like those chefs, would you say you know them pretty well? Would you say have you shot with them multiple times?
Yeah.
Like you have that comfort with them, right?
Definitely. And within that industry, like it's a lot more like, I've done some other like more corporate stuff within like food and beverage. People are just like more real. Like they're more open to like jokes and stuff like that. They're more
Sure.
open to like, you still like there's a level of definitely respect when you're working with chefs and stuff like that. Like to be honest, they do like it if you're like, yes, chef, yes, chef. They like that shit. And I can indulge
Do
them
they
on
also
that.
say yes, photographer, yes, photographer?
Yeah, very rarely.
Damn.
But yeah, they do take like that criticism or just like joking around. Well, if they like do a bad take, and I'm just like John Snopley, he owns Ascari. Like I did tons of shoots with him, and he would get through a take, and I'd just be like, "No, John, that was terrible. Like that was shit. That was honestly shit. Do it again." And that certain in a corporate fucking setting or whatever, they might be like more upset with that, but
But see,
Yeah.
and that's a good point that you make is that comfortability with those people because like going back to my point with the birthday candle.
Mhm.
I felt like I should have, and if I was maybe more comfortable with the people around me, I should have said, "Hey, can we just do that again? Just light it up one more time. I feel like I need to get the shot again." I felt kind of embarrassed that I didn't necessarily get the shot, even though it wasn't
Yeah.
necessarily all my fault. I kind of felt bad I didn't get the shot. Therefore, I didn't want to kind of put it out there that, hey, that wasn't how I planned it. Can we do it again?
Yeah, there is quite a bit of overlap like between being the photographer and like directing. You are kind of directing. when you
Yeah,
think
no,
about it,
totally.
man.
Yeah, you definitely are.
And that is good because then you're starting to like gain those skills of a director, and it's one of the toughest things ever to do. And like I shot my first short film recently. It's probably out by the time this podcast is out. If you guys check out the Deformed Lunchbox, if you check out the Unboxing Gone Wrong, it's called something like that. Maybe if I remember, I'll link it down in the description. But my buddy Peter, just like amazing with cameras and amazing at like putting shoots together. And I was really watching like how he directs, and it's such a tough thing to do, to direct, especially when like stakes are high and like you're saying, you only have one shot at something. Like we were doing it's like a horror short film that we did. You probably guessed, with Deformed Lunchbox, kind of a horror name.
Yeah.
Anyways, there's like blood and there's like effects and things like that, and you only have one shot at it. Like if you fuck it up,
it's over.
That shit's all over the table. Like you're not redoing the shot, man. Like it's not happening. You don't have another tablecloth, so like that's it. And just the way that he's able to be like, because you have to tell people we're doing it like this, but you have to do it in a way where you're nice enough that they want to do it, and they're gonna give you like a good performance, because like that's what we need to get. We need to get a good performance, but we need to get the shot too. And that's one of the hardest things. Like that's the thing that will kind of keep me going throughout all this stuff. Like you said, maybe you don't want it to be too easy. You don't like structure it too much, because then it gets too easy and then it's less creative. And like some things, you figure out it gets boring. I can set up a tripod like a million times, and my camera so far has not fallen off the tripod. But I shouldn't even say it. Is this wood? I don't know. Anyways,
let's hope it is.
I shouldn't even say it. But yeah, that's one of the things that like always keeps me going, is like shit. Like you're gonna get better at being a better director, and that's like one of the coolest things to be good at, you know.
And that's something, like I said, that's something I'm working on. And I feel for any photographer, whether you're 10 years into it, a couple days into it, I feel like the best avenue to go is street still, before you kind of find your avenue into, is it events you want to do? If it is, what type of events are you kind of want to focus on a little bit more? Yeah. But just kind of get that comfortability with people, especially unknown people. I think it goes a long way.
Totally, man. Are there any other, what are we at here? We got like a 40-minute podcast. Are there any other things that you can think of, kind of like just quick ones that we can jump into? Any other like tips that will help you as you get further into your photography career, how you can feel less anxious, be a little bit more in the moment?
Yeah, I think not even on the actual shoot itself, but just put your content out a little bit more.
True.
I know for me, when I spend some time in Lightroom and I'm editing and I'm like, is this good? Is this not good? What are people going to think about this? And then I kind of just throw it on Instagram, and then all of a sudden a photo I thought was people love, right?
Your photography is awesome,
man. I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it.
That's why you're here. It's because it is honestly really good. And I could have done the whole show just like praising your photography, but yeah, your recent shoots, like the colors that you're able to get, like just your eye for like lighting and stuff, the like depth of field the layers you put into photos. It's really cool.
I appreciate that, and we've had this conversation before. It's like I appreciate you saying that, but for me, I still feel like there's something about my style or my shots that I'm not quite getting right. Mm-hmm. And again, maybe it's because I'm comparing myself to other more well-known photographers, and I'm just falling into that trap of I wish I can kind of be a little more like this person or like that person.
Yeah, but don't do that. But strive to be better. But don't. Yeah,
No, totally right. But yeah, just again, getting your shots out there. It doesn't matter if you think it's great or not. Just put it out there.
Yeah.
Let people be the judge for that, right?
Totally.
Like I get some nice comments. People just DMing me asking, like they can't believe some of the colors. Like for instance, the I already forgot what it's called, but something called like "Love Me Till I'm Me Again," which was just down on Dufferin and DuPont. It's not there anymore, unfortunately. But
it's a bar.
No, it was. I don't even know what you want to call it, but it was like, I guess, signage, right? Okay. And I was able to get some nice colors from the sky, some nice pink tones.
Yeah, I just assumed if it was there and then it was gone, I just assumed it was a bar.
No, it's no. Unfortunately, condos are going up there, so they've removed that installation. But like again, get some nice messages of people saying like, "Oh my God, like that's an amazing photo." Like can I buy it? And when people
Wow.
say that, it's
Wow.
like, all right, like maybe there is something here. Maybe I should be putting up more things like this. And
Yeah.
I know it may also sound bad too, but like sometimes the likes matter. I know it has a lot to do with the Instagram algorithms and what time you're posting, what days you're posting, but like if a photo I see is getting more likes than the next, I start to question why.
Yeah, true.
Why is it getting more likes? Is it the type of shot? Is it more of a street shot? Is it the colors I'm using, the different editing I'm doing? But then again, that just helps with the anxiety of, are my shots good enough? Are my photos good enough? Just put it out there. Like let people be the judge. If they're not great, then I welcome all constructive feedback, right?
Yeah,
Like
you really do got to publish your work. Like if you're making stuff and not putting it out, like you're saying, that strategy of using the gig that you just did to get the next gig. Like
Exactly.
I'm a big proponent of that. One way is just being, talking to people while you're there. Hey, what's up? Oh, how's it going? Being all small town and shit,
No, that's right.
Yeah.
I mean, for me though, like I'm not huge on putting my event work or my paid gigs out there, at least on my social media anyways, just because out of the respect for the client. I mean, if they allow me to, then great. But
see, I always put it in contracts that I can
really,
do that. Yeah.
See, I don't go with contracts. I just go with a quick e-transfer and we're good. We're done.
Well, maybe we can talk. I've done a little bit of stuff on contracts before, but yeah, I do think like for the fact that showing that work in your portfolio is what's going to get you more work. Like if you can get them to sign off on that, saying like, yeah, you've got the right to put this in your portfolio.
If I get like a verbal agreement that they would allow me, then I'll do that. I'm not too worried about that.
Yeah, true. Either way,
But if it's like you, where you're doing like bigger shoots with like some chefs and insurance companies, like definitely get that in writing, right?
Yeah, and then you can put that stuff out, and it does help quite a bit. Like especially when you need a specific like portfolio piece, and someone's like, "Oh, have you done this particular thing? Have you done cocktail video?"
Exactly.
You don't want to be like, "Oh, I don't know. Can I show them that or not or whatever?"
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Kind of helps. Another thing that I would say is like really good, in terms of just like a strategy for being a little bit more confident, being a little bit less anxious. Like I think if there's a type of photography that you want to get into, like let's say that you really do want to start shooting models, or you really do want to start shooting weddings, going in as the second shooter is a perfect way to do that, right? Like I've been second shooter on stuff, and like I don't care. I don't need to be again like the Mr. Big Shot, like, oh, it's my thing. I don't give a fuck, dude.
Learning
like
experience, right?
Yeah, totally. Like if I haven't really done that type of shoot before, I'm happy to go with someone who's like a little bit more experienced than myself. Like when you came on the St. Andrews thing, you were able to start doing more video stuff. Like you want to get into video. You've got the exact same freaking camera as I do. It's like perfect, it's really good for video. And if you had to go through all of that and all of the negotiations with the client and the everything and organizing the whole thing, it probably would have been overwhelming. But the fact that you just got to come in, shoot it, and give me the SD card and leave, it's a good like icebreaker, right? Of like, oh, okay, this is, let's actually go kind of experience it. No,
it worked great, especially even you just sending me the email, which the client had sent as far as like all the deliverables they were expecting. I found that was really helpful too, right? Because I mean, I expected that, but also I wasn't sure what to expect. It just kind of like, I was watching you a lot. I know that sounds weird, but I was watching you a lot, kind of how you're doing things and how you're setting up your equipment, how to use the gimbal. That was pretty cool.
Well, that's a tough one, man.
The next day, literally, I was so close to buying a gimbal. I stopped myself though. It was.
Oh man.
I
bought a gimbal and then I returned it for a twice as expensive gimbal.
Oh geez, yeah. I mean, it's dangerous. It's a dangerous game, man.
It is a dangerous game to get into. And I would say like another one aside from if you got one more, we'll make it the last one because you're the guest and shit. Having like a photography mentor, someone who you like look up to, that was a big one when I started getting into it. My buddy Pavel. He was doing a lot of shoots. He was so driven, like he just had his apartment he didn't have a studio or anything. He would frickin' take his bed, put it up on the wall, put a curtain over it, and he would turn his whole like lights up, backdrop, turn the whole place into a studio, and like invite models over and shoot, and they would be none the wiser that he even lives there, right? It would be like, no, this is my studio. Like, yeah. And just like his drive, his love for it, his passion, like really inspired me, and I could ask him a lot of questions, you know, just to get myself started in the game. Alexi is another person, you know, who doesn't really listen to podcasts, so he probably won't hear this. But yeah, who definitely, and I tell him in real life too, you know, that he's a boss. He helped me a lot in terms of just like, yeah, really taking this serious. Like, it's his full-time job. It's all he doesn't do other shit, right? Other than play Dungeons and Dragons. And no one gets paid for playing. I don't know. Some people do. I don't know how the fuck they do that. Anyways, but yeah, he like got me into it, and you know, was someone who I could go to for advice, and just like, man, like, how do I actually do this? Should I be like afraid to do this? Should I try this? Like, being open with someone who is open with their ideas, someone who actually, you know, is interested in helping you, has the time to help you, and, you know, doesn't view it as this thing of like, oh, it's got competition, because I hate that shit.
Yeah,
like, I don't know. There's plenty of shoots out there.
Totally.
You know, if you're shooting a birthday party, I'm not going to look at those photos and be like,
I should have been mine.
Oh, I should have had that.
Yeah.
I should have been missing that shot of the candles. You know, like, I'm just not like that. Yeah. Like, and it honestly, it's better for me if I can teach someone something. Like, if I can teach them how to shoot video, how to use a gimbal, whatever,
totally.
how to light something better, then I can bring them on a shoot and the fucking video is going to look better. So yeah, that's one thing. Like, if there's someone who, you know, maybe they're a little bit, you know, like Alexi was to me at a certain point, and Pavel and stuff like that, if they have a little bit more experience than you, then why not benefit from that if they're willing to share some stuff, right?
I love that. Yeah. And just to jump off of that, and again, I touched on it earlier, but really, if you're struggling with social anxiety in photography, I think the best thing you can do, especially if you're starting out, is to find someone to come with you, right? Whether if you're just walking down the street with your camera, whether it be your girlfriend, your friend, just walk with them, have a conversation with them, just take some clicks every now and then, you know, talk about your shots or what you're looking to get. Mm-hmm. So again, for me, especially early on, I remember there was one time, this is when I first started photography. And again, it was mainly in street photography. I carried around a 250 millimeter lens. And at that point you feel really weird, especially in public, right? Like, why does this guy have this big ass camera, right? And I was like so far away, but I was taking photos of like these guys that doing skateboard tricks, and people are walking by looking at me like, what's this guy doing? Like, it almost looked like I was hiding in a bush. I wasn't actually hiding in a bush, but I was behind a few trees. Like, I don't want anyone to see me. I don't want anyone to see me. But like, after a while, again, it feels normal.
Yeah.
Again, shooting with other photographers, like you said, like, again, I'm going to go back to West NJ because we've been on a few photo walks now, and just having that conversation of, you know, how we do certain things, or what we like to shoot, what we don't like to shoot. Yeah. And Jay has got a really good eye, and he'll be like, yo, Mike, do you see that? You see that? You see what I'm seeing? I'm like, yeah, I see what you're seeing. I got to pull out my camera, got to shoot it. Again, you don't even think about other people at that point. You just think about that person you're with, and you know what I mean? You start to feel more comfortable, and that just translates into any other shoots, whether it be, you know, events or walking down the street.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point, man. Very good point. Yeah, like lean on other people too, man.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, and you know, try to, if there was a more apt fucking message for this podcast, have photography friends, you know?
Have photography friends, yes. This is the perfect podcast to find those friends. That's right.
That's true. You'll find them. They're guests on this show. I don't want to do the show by myself.
No, hey, I mean, the photography community is a great community, so
totally is, man.
No one's going to turn anybody down.
It's the only people the only people who understand me anymore. Yeah, and no one else knows what f-stop is.
No.
You're like, I think it's a number on the camera. Not sure what it does.
What does it do? No.
I think it makes shit more blurrier. I don't fucking know. Anyways, yeah, the last one that I have in my notes here. If all else fails, if you really can't get over your social anxiety, just drink.
Hey, yeah. No, that's a good point. Jeez. But Not if you're getting paid, though. I mean, you might want to stay away from that.
Wait till the shoot's done, then
right.
start drinking. No, honestly, I've been on some shoots where like it's like a photo shoot and like the client just feels nervous, and I'm like, is there some vodka in the house? Like, let's give your client some vodka.
There you go.
Glass of wine, something like that.
Calm everybody down. Calm their nerves.
Calm
That's
everybody
right.
down, and
Love
it's
it.
good.
Love it.
Yeah, man. Another thing that I love is that you were on this podcast. So thanks for being on the show, bro.
Thanks again for having me. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was fun, man.
Sweet
You didn't
setup.
seem like you were anxious at all. Yeah.
I mean, I am an anxious person, but no, we're good. We're comfortable.
When you're talking photography and you're with friends, then it's all good,
talking about things you love. Yeah, you're with friends, good company. Everything's fine.
It's
Everything's
true,
good.
man. Before we get out of here, do you want to plug any shit? You got some shit to plug?
No, I guess just my Instagram, Mikey Mederios, Mikey, Medeiros, Medeiros. And yeah, that's where you can find me. That's where you can talk shit about my photos if you want to talk shit.
You're one of those people who likes criticism, which we don't get on Instagram. You never really do, right?
No, I appreciate the criticism if it's in a message, not blatantly out in my comments. Like, come on. Yeah.
The framing's a little off here.
No, but so far that hasn't happened. But who knows? Someone watching this maybe will.
I don't mind. You guys can criticize me right in the comments. I don't care. It's all good. Yeah.
No, but
I just find on Instagram people just put like a smiley emoji and a fire, and you're like, that doesn't help me get better at photography. But I appreciate it anyways.
Yeah, just constructive feedback is always good.
Yeah, for sure. I gotta plug some stuff, It's a podcast. Photo_friends_pod. Mikey will send me some of his favorite photos that he ever took, and I'll put them up there. Sweet. And I'll tag him. So you guys can check out some of his work. What else? If you rate us on Apple Podcasts, my phone turned off, so I gotta do this all from the brain, but I'll remember it all. Apple Podcasts, you can go on there. You can leave reviews. Helps the show a lot. Apparently, most people listen to it on Apple Podcasts. We do have some women in the stats, I've noticed. We used to have like 2% women, and now we're at like kind of 20-30%. We're getting there. I don't know. If I keep having handsome men like you on the show, yeah.
Hey, I'm taking.
He's taking. But can keep listening. Anyways, and what else? CloudSpot, guys. It's a great deal. This guy uses it. I use it. All the photographers in this room who are taking photography real serious are using CloudSpot. You can click that link. You can get 50% off. Mikey, before we go, we need something random. Just a random thing. Whatever the first thing that comes to mind. I'm gonna leave that in your hands. I'm walking over here. If it's something terrible, then you're responsible. All right.
Something random.
I
mean, I don't have anything random, but all right. I don't know. Shout out CloudSpot. I don't know.
All right.
Can we?
Fine.
Does that work?
Good enough.